Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us today as we discuss Awakening Starseeds Volume 2. Today we have a very special guest with us, Eric Rain. He is a co-author in Awakening Starseeds Volume 2. Today we get an opportunity to get to know him, take a look into his spiritual awakening, and hear a little bit about his chapter in Awakening Starseeds Volume 2. Welcome, Eric. Thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Danielle.
Absolutely. So, I have to clear my throat, sorry. Just tell us a little bit about yourself as we get to know you. Let's hear a little bit about your background.
Oh yeah, definitely. So my background, depending on what part we're looking at, a lot of my physical know-how and my expertise, it comes from my massage therapy and physical therapy and chiropractic backgrounds. Pretty much I went to massage school on a soul search, trying to find that feeling that felt good, that passionate expression of who I was, and I found myself wanting to help people out and help people stop hurting. And I pretty much went from directly from my massage college into working for an applied kinesiologist chiropractor, and we would specialize in like injuries with like car accidents and so on and so forth like that. And we would pass people back and forth together. And he would tell me, hey, I can't get an adjustment here. And so I go and see what muscles are tied into that range of motion. I get those to release. He get the adjustment, and we get people in and out. Like it was really a lot of fun, and I learned a lot. But it was very interesting because as I was going through this process, there were three things that I would take care of. There was the fascia. If the fascia was tight and it wasn't able to get blood flow through it, then you couldn't get it to relax. And if you got the fascia to stretch and let go, if that didn't let go and it didn't relax, then I would go after the lymphatics. And so I would open up the lymphatic pathways above where it was hurting and below where it was hurting so it could both breathe in and out of the area. And for the most part, that would get, I'd say, about 90 to 95% of like everything that was on my table to completely and totally release, except for that other 5%. And it was very interesting because like I couldn't figure it out, and it got to the point to where there was two things that actually happened. So I was working on this modality called Jin Shindo, which is pretty much a balancing of the scales energetically. It's kind of like acupuncture without the needles. And so you kind of have to have like an energetic sensitivity. You have to be able to feel where the energy is hot or where it's pushing out, and that's kyo. There's too much. And jitsu is almost like a hollowness, like a sucking sensation where this is too much, this isn't enough. And then pretty much what you do is you find it and you just balance the scales. And so what this does is it moves bioelectric energy that's not having any application into a space to where there is no application, to where it can be used. And as I was starting to do that, it would be really instantaneous. Like I would have almost like a complete let go, and then the muscle would release. You'd hear bones like start clicking back into place, and just, oh, what was that? And like it'd be really fun talking about it with the clients and whatnot. But there was every once in a while I would balance this out where I would run into something. It was like I would try to balance it, and it was like, it's not moving. What is going on here? And so as I was trying to figure that out, at the same time, I was actually, there's this thing called an emotional release that you're taught as a chiropractor, a physical therapist, massage therapist. Pretty much there can be trauma or an emotion that doesn't feel good inside of the muscles. And when you get the muscles to release, there's something called a Herxheimer reaction where you feel the effects of what you're purging. And it might not be as strong as the actual problem that needed to be quarantined to begin with, but you still feel it as it's releasing and as it's purging. And this is where, somebody, like, they'd have the muscle let go, they'd feel way better, and suddenly start crying for no reason. And, like, I don't know why I'm crying, like, I'm not sad, but you can't stop. It's like your body just responding to the sensation. And so it was that understanding right there that led me to kind of recognize, like, that balance, that thing that I couldn't move out of the way. It was like a stuck space of emotion. And usually the emotion, when it gets stuck, it's emotion that doesn't feel good because, happiness doesn't cause a problem. It's one of those things that it's a very healing, very powerful energy and hormone inside of the body to experience. It's one of like one of the fountain of youth energies. So anyways, So as I was doing this, I started put two and two together, and I started to recognize like that blocked something inside of the body. It's not just an emotion, but it's like a biochemical, bioelectrical resonance that's causing the muscle to seize up.
Hmm.
And the way that the muscle cells work is they're all very long and sinuous flows of muscle that, like if you're in a barley field where the grass is growing, flowing all in the same direction, the wind's all blowing in the same
Mhm.
way. It's like millions of things doing the same exact thing, and it's how the muscle cells work, and they pull on each other and then they let go, and that's how we make our muscles tight and make them soft. And that command process right there, the ability for your brain to say, hey, move, and your hand to move and do what you want it to right there, that's something that we have to fine tune. We have to get our motor skills and whatnot to get to the point to where we can do things that most adults are capable of doing. But what we don't pay attention to whatsoever is how connected into the emotions and the thoughts and the actual physical sensations are inside of the body. For instance, if we were thinking about anger, something that makes, that burning acid ball in the stomach and the solar plexus right there, if we were to stop thinking about what we're angry about and go directly into the actual feeling of that sensation, A, right off the bat, it's painful. We don't like it. B, fists are clenched up, jaws clenched up, shoulders are all right here. Muscles are very, very tight in response to that resonance frequency. And on the other end of that spectrum, if you're laughing, if you're happy, it's that bubbling light sensation that it comes up to the point to where you can't help it but ha 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 like it's a guttural response. And so I
Mhm.
started to try to reverse engineer and figure out how the body works with these emotions and with these energies and these frequencies, and it opened up a rabbit hole I never expected. And I've not only developed psychic senses and psychic skills that are nothing more than an extension of my nervous system that I can show anybody how to use, and anybody can develop these skills as well.
Mhm.
But B, you can actually start communicating with your body in a way that it's not about I want you to relax. It's the actual quintessence, the feeling, the sensation of relaxation, the feeling of the muscles getting warm and the muscle cells releasing and letting go. Like this is the quality of language that the body communicates on. And this is all something that I came with. It wasn't, oh, let me rephrase that. I came with a curiosity. I came with a knowing that there was something more. And then inside of this human body that felt so shut off from what I knew was possible, I knew that I could push towards it. And so I started to try to figure out how this all works. And it led to a pathway where I used to hurt all the time and I don't hurt anymore. I used to be angry and depressed and just really not a nice person. And I feel great. Don't get me wrong. I have my days. We all do, just like everybody else. But I understand how these processes work. And it's not about ignoring with my mind, trying to dissolve the attention away from how I'm feeling. It's simply
Mhm.
recognizing that I'm feeling something uncomfortable and then not letting it get stuck inside my body. Then I don't have dysfunction that comes up from that. So
That's
that's
amazing.
that's my background. That's pretty much what I do, and that's what I teach people. And it all started because there was something more, and that's that little star seed. Like,
Yes,
it's
exactly.
that little ping right there. That's what pushed me on this path now.
That's amazing. I love your level of clarity on this topic. I'd like to hear a little bit more, but I want to know how this particularly led you into awakening your starseed journey. Could you maybe dive a little deeper into that?
So mine wasn't pleasant.
Okay.
I had a much more rough journey than most people. Like people call it the dark night of the soul, where
Mhm.
everything just gets so crazy and it's like the universe is fighting against you. Well, ever since I was about maybe 8 or 9, like after the age of innocence, where you start to understand, like that was my life, and I didn't understand why. I do now. It's well, pretty much genetic trauma. If you have unprocessed trauma that you don't clear out and you just kind of stuff it down, and then you have children or you hang out with people who have children and like you're related to them, that genetic field starts to actually pass down. And what
Hmm.
ends up happening is you end up with kids who have PTSD from trauma they've never experienced, and they think it's normal. And it's not. It's 100% not. But I was very a suicidal angry kid, and it was
Hmm.
I didn't understand why. Well, I mean, and I had trauma. There was definitely stuff that was going on in my childhood and whatnot that uh, I tried to say, like, well, maybe I'm mad about that, and it's like, well, I'm not really, upset. Like, I can't. There's no connection there. And it just led on a pathway to where I literally thought I was here to be the most lethal person on the planet. And I'd been doing martial arts since I was 5, and I was going into the Army Rangers with the Special Forces transfer to the Navy SEALs. And by the grace of Providence, I had gotten into enough trouble as a child to where there was hiccups in that process to get into the military, and there was things that I had to do. There were hoops that I had to jump through, and things like I had to get cleared up with the legal system and whatnot. And I looked at it and I said, you know what? That's a giant no. I'm just backing away from it. And I thought it was the end of everything. And it led to a lot of addiction, alcoholism, methamphetamine abuse, marijuana addiction, like all kinds of stuff that pretty much I was just trying to fill a hole that it was screaming for love. It was just wounded. It was hurting, and I was trying to make myself feel better in ways that I didn't understand how. And one of the bright things that came through in my life, specifically chiropractic. As a martial artist, when I was about 15, I messed my neck up, like really, really badly. And that was my first exposure to chiropractic. And after the first adjustment, which hurt like crazy, and I was, like, I'm never going back. And the next day I woke up and I'm like, huh. Okay, well, there's definitely something going on. That doesn't hurt anywhere near as bad. I can't move it anywhere near as much as I'm used to, but that feels better. So I started to, well, what's happening here? How's this going? And I joined a chiropractic assistant ROP because I wanted to see the back end of it and see what was going on there. And, well, it was beautiful because there were two major things that happened with that. I recognized I am not a front office person. I'm the back office person that you come to go see. I have somebody who takes care of that stuff for me because I suck at it. And B, that I met a lady who was in the class with me. Janice Kazanjian, that was her name. And Janice, she was doing Reiki, and she was a massage therapist, and she was trying to kind of expand out what she was doing here. So she was getting into the chiropractic world as well. And she was showing me how to do like the Reiki hot hands and like place them on people and, make the space feel better and whatnot. But she also showed me a couple massage moves where you just kind of press into the body and you get it to move a little bit, and it gets some of the muscles to release. And it was like 2 or 3 moves. I can't even remember. But I would use them on people. Somebody would be like, "Oh, my neck," or "Oh, my back," and I'd be like, "Oh, I know this move. You want me to try it out?" And they, of course, like sometimes they'd be a little hesitant. Sometimes people would blow me off and be like, "No, no, no." But the people who did, I was able to use my martial arts sensitivity, because there's something about with the precision of the body when it becomes part of a movement. Like, exactly where you are, meaning that your nerves are more active, they're more aware, they're more understanding, and this is something anybody can train how to do, but you have more internal feeling. You have more internal sensation. You can close your eyes and put your hand on something, and there's more sensation that you can decode from your hand than somebody else who doesn't, move their body like that. And it was very interesting because I could feel where the knots were, I could feel where the tight muscles led, and I would get it to move, I would get it to relax, and every single time, oh man, that feels so much better, and I would feel good, and it was that sensation right there. It was almost like I didn't know how to feel good, and so as somebody experienced relief, I could vicariously experience through them, and that was like the only real thing. Like, I would laugh with friends, I would, almost put on the like the appearance of having emotions, but for the most part, I would have to fake the happy ones. I would have to fake the good ones. I didn't know what they felt like, but I didn't have Asperger's. I could feel the bad ones, no problem, and I felt them very clearly. And so it was almost like that sensation of release. I would, not very often, maybe, 2 or 3 times every 5 or 6 years after that, when I was 15, all the way up until I was about 26, it was just those moments. And so when my life started to truly fall apart, like when I recognized how dark and how depressing and how crazy everything was, and like it was my fault because I was focusing on everything that I didn't enjoy, That's when it started to break apart because I was like, well, look at it. It's magnificent. I mean, it's awful, but it's magnificent. Look what I created. What would happen if I started to focus on light? And my minimum wage, self-loathing job, like all of it, my relationship, everything collapsed within the space of about 3 weeks,
Wow.
drastically so. And it ended up with my ex. She ended up having to go to jail. She had alcoholism issues too, and she was in the system, and she was getting a lot worse. And they ended up taking her back to jail, and I ended up having to stay in Reno for about 2 months with my 9-month-old daughter, waiting for the court to tell me that I could go move in with my mother back in California. And I didn't have anybody to watch Deja. I didn't have anybody to take care of her, and I had to stop working, and I ended up having to literally sell all of my stuff. And here I was, the guy who, I might not have had a whole bunch of money, but I always paid my way. I always paid for my food. I always paid for my rent, and I didn't take charity from anybody. Now I had no choice because it wasn't about me. And, I went with my 9-month-old daughter to get on food stamps and welfare at my mom's house. And I had no money. Like, I had no ability to distract myself. I had food stamps, so I had food for me and Deja, and I had enough money to pay my mom rent to cover electricity and other expenses because of me living there, and that was it. And a lot of people, distinctly remember this phase here. A lot of people I remember having the recognition of how many people in this space would lose hope and how awful that situation would seem. And I just remember being so excited about how much time I had to work for myself, how much time I had to work on myself, how much time I could, start to explore these things. And I did. It was like 6-7 hours every day. I was doing Kundalini yoga, I was doing Reiki, I was, Qigong, and it led to this breakthrough. So the information around this is kind of specific. So red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. That's the rainbow spectrum that we're equipped to see. This is what we can detect the world with. And we know that there's color outside of it, but our eyes just don't have the spectrum in order to pay attention to that. And I was doing a lot of Reiki with like the different colors inside of the body. And I was seeing how the different colors felt and what they did and the properties of them and whatnot. And then I had this moment where I was like, well, what if I used them all at the same time? What if I put all the colors together? And I started using this rainbow energy, and it was really strong and effective. And I would use it on people, and they would feel almost like this soothing, warm buzz that would flow through their body when I would do it. But it felt like I was missing something. And I'm like, I know there's more to this. I know there's something stronger. And then I had this prism, like, like a glass prism, like a triangle, how you break the light and you can see the rainbow with it. I had I think I saw the Pink Floyd. If somebody was wearing a shirt and it was the Pink Floyd where the light was coming in and coming out as a rainbow. And I was like, oh my goodness, that right there. And so I started using white energy. And white, it was so much more powerful than just the rainbow because it had almost like another aspect to it that I couldn't quite put my finger on, but it still felt like it was lacking. And it was when I was sun gazing one night. I was looking at the sun, I was watching it come down around the horizon as it started to go through, and it just hit me. I was like, oh my goodness, the golden light. Oh my goodness. And so as I was looking at the sun, I pulled that sensation into myself, and it electrified me. And I mean, it was crazy how powerful it felt. And so I started to use this energy specifically when I would work on people, and I was getting just results that were insane. Like, I mean, literally being able to, like, if there was pain right here in the back, reach in, grab the pain, pull it out, and all of a sudden the pain's gone. And like, people were just starting to, really, what's going on here, man? Like, what is going on? And I just kept diving, I kept on pushing, and I kept going to the point to where what was that epiphany? Chakra removal. It was this article that somebody had given me, and it was something about removing the chakras and how freeing it was. And I was like, that's just idiocy. Like, your chakras are all part of your glands. Like, if you take your glands out, you're going to die. Dumb. No. And I just kind of poo-pooed it and put it away, but it just kind of kept coming back up, and it would just be in the back of my head for almost 6 months. And I just couldn't stop thinking about these words, chakra removal, chakra removal. I'm like, no, that's dumb. Stop it. And then it was this article that I read. It was called "The Secret of the Chakras," and they started talking about how the red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet chakra centers are all limited inside of visible light. And then they put the equation of visible light and how small it is compared to electromagnetism, the actual vastness of the capability of what light is. And say, for instance, if we had sheets of paper stacked 2,000 feet tall, the visible light spectrum would be the width of one of those sheets of paper.
Wow.
And by putting ourselves into this green, blue, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet spectrum, what ended up happening is not only did we limit ourselves into that tiny little space right there, then we cut it into 7 pieces. And so we're like, oh, look at all this energy that we got. And it's literally one of the most limiting things that you could ever experience. And oh, we got doggies. And it's one of the most limiting things you could ever experience. And so I started, okay, this isn't a removal. This is an integration to where we bring it back into the whole, and then we expand the whole into everything else. And so it's not about being in a color, it's about being all colors, everything, even the stuff that we can't detect. And so I started going into a process of turning all of my chakras into suns. And it all culminated one night. Oh God, when was that? So I was still in school, and we had this presentation that we had to do the next day, and I believe it was on February 19th. So I'm pretty sure it was February 18th, 2013. And it was about 9:27 at night. I very distinctly remember when this happened. But the meditation was, I had gotten so far into my chakra centers that I felt like all these floating little bubbles. It was like I had my red right here, I had my purple up here, and my body's just kind of bobbing along right here. And I'm floating on like this golden liquid, like I'm floating on the sun. And I inhaled and I stretched them open, and it felt very distinctively like if you took a balloon and you stretched out a piece of the balloon and then you twisted that so it was like a little balloon. It's part of the whole, but it's still separate. And so if you were to let go of that, it would untwist itself and that air would become part of the whole. That's what it felt like. It was like the colors untwisted. There was this releasing, letting go sensation, and then it dropped out. And then it was like the sun flooded back inside of me. And it was the most explosively charged sensation I've ever experienced in my life. It was like my heart got so hot that there was this bubble. I could touch it and it was burning my chin. It was getting so hot, and I could push against it and I would actually get pushed back, like this magnetic resistance. But at the same time that this was going on, I've got like all of this light coursing through my body. It's like going through my bones, going through my muscles, going through my skin, and I'm trying to not just completely blink out and lose myself inside of this. And as this is going on, there's this click in the side of my head that starts to slide backwards all the way to the back of my skull right here.
Wow.
And as it clicked and let go, 2 things happened. A, my voice inside of my head started to get weird. And it started to get more angry. It started to almost like it, like, well, what's that? What's going on? And it got crazy sounding till it was back here, and it was like I had this guttural demon screeching in my head. And the other side of that was the pain. As it clicked, it was like a pressure, but the further it moved back until it got back here, it was like this red hot nail that was getting pounded into the back of my head. And it was excruciating, and it only took like 7 or 8 seconds for that slide to happen. And so here I am. I've got more energy than I've ever experienced in my life. I literally feel like I'm floating off of the ground. I can feel everything around me in a 50-foot bubble, including like the insects crawling in the dirt under the house. And I've got this demon screaming in my head. And that's when like this epiphany of, this isn't me. Like there's something inside of me and it's trying to pretend it's me, but that is not me. And as soon as I had that realization, it's like, all right, guy, we're going to do this. And so I fought with that thing for like 3 hours that night. Finally got it out. As soon as I got it out, I realized like I've got these other little black heavy spots inside of me. I had a couple in my abdomen, one in my chest. And so I grabbed a hold of these things and I pulled them loose. And what happened afterwards, once it all stopped, once I could finally like rest, and I'm sitting here thinking to myself, like, Eric, you've got to call the nut house. Like, you're insane. You had a demon screaming in your head. Like, you're not okay. You need a padded cell. But at the same time, my body's just like, Like I said, I've been in martial arts for a while. I broke my ribs. It blew out my spine. It dislocated the ribs on the other side, and like there was an extreme amount of tension that I'd always have, and it was gone. Like I couldn't feel any of it, and I felt just liquid butter soft and so just and emotionally, I couldn't stop. I'm just like, I feel so good. My mind's up here like, no, Eric, you're nuts. You got to go to the nut house. And my body's like, shut up. Just pay attention to how I feel. And I went to school the next day. And my bubble wasn't as big. It wasn't this giant 50-foot bubble. It was like maybe 5 or 6 feet around me. But I could feel everything inside of it still. And so people would pass by me and I would like hear their thoughts. I would feel their pain. And then there was like these black spots inside of them. And then I would like look and there's like this wisp of black stuff outside of them that's like sitting there like, pss, 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 like talking. And it's like this internal voice. And I'm like, that wasn't just me. Like what is going on here? And so I started going to like parks. I started going to malls and just like sitting down and observing, and like everybody, every single last person had these dark, heavy things inside of them that I know now what it was, but I thought it was the demons doing it to humanity. It wasn't. They're a symptom of the problem. The symptom is trauma, and they feed on trauma. Which is what I do now. I show people how to find trauma inside of them and to clear it out, not just on a mental level, but on an emotional, spiritual, physical, the whole thing. Because it's not just dense energy. It's a blockage. It's a lack of blood flow. It's a lack of energy flow. It's a lack of emotional flow. It's a lack of thought flow. It's everything inside of that space. And if there's something on the outside, demonic in nature, that's feeding on something like that, it doesn't matter, because if you clean that damage out, if you clean that heavy, dark space out, it needs something heavy and dark in order to even touch you. So it's like, trying to grab a fistful of air. It just doesn't work.
Yeah.
That is the awakening. That is what happened, and I started yelling really early about it. I started, talking about the demons are attacking humanity, and it kind of went like semi-viral, and I've learned a lot since then because I was fighting. I was at war. And it got pretty bad. Well, we gotta wrap this up with what I do and why now. So I got taken over pretty much. I started fighting so much that like all these things on the outside, they started, oh, Eric Rains, we got to get that guy. He's messing stuff up. And one night it happened. And I'm not going to go into like the details around it, but I'd always been strong enough. Like I had this confidence that I don't care how big you are. I don't care how bad you are. I'm big enough to get brighter. I'm strong enough to blow you to pieces. And that's how I rolled. And this night where all of this happened, I'm like, okay, I'm just going to pretend I don't see this. I'm going to build this up in the background and I'm going to blow it up and I'm going to be just fine. And I, boom, supernova this light out and it crushed back in. And I was like, wait, what? And I was like, I'm always strong enough. I'm always good enough. Hurry up, Eric. Boom. Crushed back in. And this time it wasn't just like this bubble outside of me. I was inside of my body. And I'm missing like this much of my skin everywhere. And I can't feel it. And I'm only inside of that space. And I'm starting to panic now because nothing like this had ever happened. I'd always been strong enough. And I start just getting crushed in further and further, and this physically feels like I'm inside of this golden ball, and I'm just holding my arms and my legs, and I'm physically straining as hard as I can to keep my space, and they just keep crushing me smaller and smaller until I'm about maybe this big. And once that happened, I could see everything so much more clearly because I can't see, hear, taste, touch, and smell. I'm losing the senses of my body, but I'm wide open to spirit, and I'm seeing all this darkness outside of me. And what ended up happening was like this pulse, this wave, and it towards me, and I see this tsunami of darkness coming, and I just, oh God, and they blew me out of my body. And I thought they were going to eat me. I thought it was over. I thought it was done. And they couldn't even detect me. And so here I am sitting outside, like I thought it was like the soul of mankind. I thought that's what this whole thing was all about. Like I thought that's why us Starseeds were here, to save humankind, to save the souls, because they're going to get destroyed. What is happening here? they don't even know I'm here. They can't see me. And it's not like they're not going through, they're going around me. It's like they're going through me, like I'm not even able to be detected or felt. What is this? And I turn around and I look, and it's like all this universe of darkness that I saw on the outside. It was massive. It was so big, but it was like it was shrinking down and funneling into this black hole. And this black hole, like they were desperate and they were starving, and like there was this just like starving quality to them, and this trying to rip their way through, like I need this, I'm dying. And I'm like, what are they going after? And I let myself fall into the flow. I let myself go right up to that event horizon of this black hole, and I didn't know what was in there. I couldn't look into it. And I said, okay, well, like they can't touch me here. I feel like I'm safe, so let's see what it is. And I just kind of let myself fall in, and there I am getting molested as a kid. What? What? I'm a beautiful being of light. What is this? This can't be inside of me. And I'm literally back inside of my body now. And it was right about here. And I can feel, I'm only about like this big, but I can feel my ribs breathing. I can feel everything underneath. I can feel my abs moving back and forth. And there's no question. I am inside of my body right now. And one of the most disgusting things I've ever felt is right there. And I never really thought it affected me. I know now that I numbed it out. It was one of those things that you fry that pain because it's too painful. But I followed the effects of it out. I wasn't able to fully express love. I wasn't able to feel love. I wasn't able to trust. And there were all of these little traumas, these little spaces where I felt pain, where it felt not good enough, where I felt unworthy, that it led to so many different problems in my life that led to bigger traumas that I'm like, oh, well, obviously that's the problem right there. But sitting inside of this, I'm looking at these things gleefully feasting on one of the most disgusting things I've ever felt. And I couldn't feel anything but just absolute sadness for them. Because like if I could only feel that disgusting feeling, if I didn't know there was anything else that existed, oh man. Oh man. So here I am finding empathy and compassion for the beast for the first time in my life. I thought it was something that they were doing this to us. And here I am recognizing that they don't know better. They have no idea what laughter feels like. They have no idea what joy does inside of the body. They don't know what excitement is. They've never felt love. They don't know it exists. It's literally light. And if you turn on light, the shadow disappears. And that's how this works. They don't know. And so here I was sitting there and I'm like, well, I don't either. Crap, man. Well, this is rough. Okay, Eric, well, do you want your body back? Like, you got to face this. Like, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, well, I just don't know. Like, I mean, I've been making pretty lights. Like, that's all I've been doing. And yeah, it's effective. Yeah, it's doing stuff. But I mean, that is dark. That is darkness. That is the quintessence of darkness. And I've just been looking at shadow. I've been looking at a reflection of what this feels like. Well, what does light feel like? Then I felt it. It was like a sun rose behind me. And it was so funny too. Like this moment, I look back on it. So my friend Amanda, she had this birthday party where there was like 15, 16, 17 of us, and we all went over to her house and we were smoking pot and we were watching some stupid Adam Sandler movie. I can't remember the name of it for the life of me. But it all started with just one person laughing. And it was like they laughed at something in the movie, and the other person laughed at how they laughed at something in the movie, and they recognized that they laughed at them laughing about how they laughed, and then they laughed at them. So it started this echo. And the next thing you know, you've got two people, and they are starting to go teary-eyed, and they can't figure out what's so funny, and a bunch of stoned teenagers, of course it's going to spread. My goodness, that night, I woke up the next day and my jaws hurt so bad from smiling. Like, I think I broke a rib that night. Like, it hurt so much, but I couldn't stop. Like, I mean, it was hilarious. We couldn't figure out why it was funny, and that's why it was so funny. And it compounded on itself. And that moment in time was truly precious because it saved me. It really, truly did, because I could feel it. Like it wasn't something that I was trying to guess what that was supposed to feel like. I could literally feel that light warming through where I was at right there.
It's
And
so
so,
funny you're saying that right now because I got like a little, I couldn't see, I was looking at you and there's a like a glowing from my candle, like light, and it scared me. I was like, wait, is this it's like you're putting you're so good at like I'm visualizing everything you're saying. I'm like, oh my gosh.
well,
But
I tune into it. I actually tune
yeah.
into the energy of it and I
Mhm.
translate the energy. So it's like my words are
Yeah.
a gateway that can pull you into it
Oh,
too.
I
So
was pulled in. I was
that's,
like, wait, is there
yeah.
no, but
Well,
it's interesting because you're this is so fascinating, by the way. I this is very I'm
that's what I
gonna
do.
you're like a magician or something.
I really truly am, but it's
Yeah.
not that it takes away from it being magic, but it's nothing more than
Mhm.
an extension of your nervous system, and I can teach anybody how to do it. Does that make it less amazing because it's not, you know, explainable? No, it's magic. That's the bottom line,
Right.
and we can scientifically explain this. We can walk you through the sensation, how to
Mhm.
explain this. We can show you every single level up one side and down the other. It's magic, and there's many levels that we don't understand, many spaces that we don't know. But what we do know is enough to cause absolute euphoria and lack of pain inside of the body, and that right there, that's more than enough to start looking into it because it goes much further than that. But nobody wants to hurt, and this
Right.
is one of the easiest gateways to get into that space to stop hurting.
That's a very powerful awakening. I mean that's it's really deep too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I didn't have an easy life, you know, and there's definitely
Mhm.
people out there who've had a rougher life than I have, but not many. And it was exactly what was needed. And I would put innocent Eric through all of those hardships again, simply because I knew that I needed to understand what trauma felt like so that I could
Mhm.
find my way out of it so I could show other people how to do it too. And
Absolutely.
this is why we need our wounded healers right now. Eventually, someday, we're not going to need our wounded healers, but we need people who have experienced trauma so that they can help the other people who are stuck inside of it who don't know how to get out. That's why we're here.
Beautiful. So I have to ask you this: how did you go about come about becoming a co-creator with the as a co-author with Awakening Starseed Volume Two and Two?
It was actually at a conference I was speaking at, and
Okay.
lovely Rada is sitting there with her movie star hat with all of her books. Like I just kept on getting drawn over, and we just
Yep.
kept on talking. We ended up exchanging information, and she wanted me to get onto Volume One, but honestly, I was just procrastinating, and I didn't. It was my fault.
That's
That's why I'm
okay.
not on Volume One. So you know, and then. When she asked me again, I actually didn't have a whole bunch of projects going on, and I
Mhm.
had free time to sit there with it. And I actually had an evening where I literally had nothing to do. The kids were gone, and there was nobody in the house but me. And I always get bored at those times, and I just, you know, I turn on my video games or, you know, I watch TV or something like that because I got nobody to interact with. And I was like, well, why don't I just belt out a story real quick, you know? And I tuned into it, and I was like, well, what do I need to write for this? And it started off, well, I was always a normal boy, you know, and it just kind of came out, you know, and like that's how that happened. And
Normal.
it was Rada's an inspiration. She really is. She's got a very muse-like quality to her that it's like she radiates a very specific type of a frequency that it makes you want to be involved. You want to be a part of it, you know. And it's really a beautiful, beautiful energy for somebody who does something like this to gather so many people like this into one space to have. And she's awesome. Really love Rada.
I do as well. She's amazing. How did you come about, or I'm sorry, how did you feel during the process of this, your overall experience with Braddock Publications? Did you get to join in? Excuse me, I need some water. Did you get
Yeah.
to join in with any of the, I believe that they met up quite a few times, didn't they? Did
Nope,
you
not
get a
yet.
chance to, okay. I
Nope,
was
not
just
yet. I definitely am looking forward to that though.
excuse me. And what was your overall feeling throughout the whole process working with Broad Publications? So I know you sat down, wrote wrote this real quick, but how was it for you working with them?
Very supported.
Okay.
very supported. I really feel like it's I can bring ideas and direction to the table that not only is understood, but supported and reciprocated, and it's magic, you know. Just because it's a normal, ordinary, mundane form of magic doesn't make it any less so. It really is.
That's awesome. And let's see. Everybody has a little bit of a lesson to learn, and obviously you've had many. I know you've been through a lot. Could you share with us one or two of these lessons that you've learned throughout your life, and maybe give us some words of wisdom as a star seed?
Oh yeah, definitely. So you know, it's so funny as I tune into these. So what I do, like energy, is all about potential and connection. And so if you have, like, say for instance, you have a piece of electrified an iode here, or like a diode here and a diode here, and it's electrified to the point to where that ion filament connects in, and zap, then you have that electric pathway between those two right there. That's how a lot of this feels. And so what I do is I cast out potentials. I say, what would be the most powerful energy to bring into this space, into this moment, into this brain information understanding? And this one comes up so often. The simple fact that you exist means that not only are you worthy of existing, but that you deserve it. Because this is the way that the universe operates. If you did not deserve to exist, if you were not worthy of existence, you wouldn't be here. And the simple fact that you are speaks volumes. And we came here to figure out all of those spaces that tell us that we are not that. And those aren't bad. Those are just simply spaces that are dense. The energy doesn't flow through on that level right there. And it's our job to go with neutrality, with gentleness, into the spaces that are uncomfortable and that hurt, so that we can start to uncover our own worthiness. Because it's not something that has to be given to you. It's already there.
Well, I love that. That's very nice. I don't know what it is. My throat. I need some water. I do know I had some oatmeal before this. So, what's coming up next for you as far as projects individually? Do you have anything that you'd like to share with us that you're working on?
Yeah, so I'm actually starting to revamp the way that I do this. I'm pulling back on actual one-on-one sessions. I'm still always going to be doing sessions, but I'm gonna probably about maybe 4 or 5 a week now instead of upwards of 20 sometimes. And I'm gonna start focusing more on the guided meditations, the activations, the workshops, you know, so on and so forth. But pretty much what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the foundations class. It's a basic workshop where I teach people how to activate the mind, the body, and the spirit all into one space, and then learn how to clean out the trauma in the body with the smile tornado. Pretty much what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that all in one spot on the website, and that's all going to be for free right there. And so then we can have electives. You know, if you want to build off of the foundations, you can start going through those workshops and whatnot. And I'm going to start really bringing it back to my own internal activation, because this is where all of this started. It was my own pathway of knowing there was something more and pushing towards it. And that's how I ended up getting here. And I've helped out a lot of people, but I need to start going back towards myself. I need to start really going back into my own personal growth. And it's not about you know, pushing for something that's not there anymore. And right now I'm really recognizing that I can help humanity out a lot more if I'm taking care of myself on this level. That's where I'm headed.
That's wonderful. Yep. Well, is there any final words you'd like to share with us? Or perhaps maybe a way for people to contact you if you are open to that?
Yeah, definitely. So you can find me under unleashingnaturalhumanity.com, or you could go to Facebook, you could go to YouTube. I believe I have an Instagram page. It's all unleashingnaturalhumanity.com. Pretty much the natural space of humankind is pain-free, activated, but benevolent, multidimensional beings who are able to understand not just the now, but the past, the present, and the future. And this is who we are. This is our natural space. And by going in and finding our own activations, we take our leashes off that honestly, we are the ones who put them there to begin with because we agreed to understand how this works so that we can decode it. So,
Wow, your clarity is just blowing my mind. I definitely appreciate you being here at this time. And
thank you.
yeah, this has been very exciting. And I'm looking forward to other people hearing and reading your chapter, The Awakening Star Seed.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to it being out there.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for your time today. And I hope to catch you soon at the next live event. Hopefully, we'll all get together. And
Yeah, definitely.
thanks again. Thank you, Eric.
Definitely.
Have a wonderful day.
You too. Have a good one.